When I picked up a camera about 10 years ago or so, I didn't know much about it. So I went to YouTube, and YouTube was sort of this thing where you could find literally whatever you wanted on a lot of things. But when it came to photography and videography, it was a lot that you could get from there. And at that time, most of the people who were on YouTube were educators. They were teachers of photography. So you would get the fundamentals, the basics, the ISO, the aperture, the shutter speed. You will learn about lighting. You'll learn all the different ways to set up a shot, you know, 3-point lighting and these things. These things were really huge. I remember being very overwhelmed with information because there was just so much to learn. And at some point I felt I'm never gonna be able to learn and digest all of this stuff just because it's way too much. I mean, it's just too much information for my head to take in. I mean, it was just information. A lot of it were industry leaders, like people who were in film, people who were in directing, producing. It may be grips. It could even be guys who were, that did audio, mixing engineers. I was into all types of different things. And it just seems like the knowledge was just plentiful on YouTube. But as my journey continued, it seems like everything kind of shifted. I don't know if it was all at once or if it was over time, but I do remember there being this, it seems like information as far as getting better with videography and photography stopped. And then it became about gear. And I remember this specifically because at the time I could only afford a Canon Rebel T5i, and it was the first camera that I had that was sort of professional for me. And I remember going to try and shoot things with it, and I wanted to learn more about the camera itself and how to utilize it and how to become better with it. And just about every site I was going to was telling me that my camera was not professional, you know, because it didn't have dual car slots. I shouldn't be shooting weddings with it. Because it's a crop sensor camera, I shouldn't be shooting weddings with it. All the professionals shoot full frame, 35mm. I needed L lenses, you know, I needed the 24-70, 2.8. I needed the 70-200, 2.8 L lens. I needed the 85mm, 1.8 or 1.4, or even I didn't have the money for any of those expensive lenses. So I couldn't get those lenses. I would rent those lenses from time to time. But as time went on, I just felt as though, and these people were teaching me that my camera wasn't adequate. And my learning actually stopped during that time. I actually stopped learning information about photography and how to properly expose an image, whether it be video or photography. And I started to lean more towards learning about gear. And in some ways, learning about gear was good, but the majority of it, I will say, this time of my life was the most wasted time, to where I was just learning about the best gear. But it didn't push me forward with my actual work. I just knew that I didn't have the best, and I was constantly reminded that I needed a better camera. So the quest started, and my aim was to get a better camera. So I kept looking at gear, and I kept trying to shoot and thinking, I need better gear, I need better gear. But as I kept going, I looked back at my old work and I said, wait a minute, my old work looks terrible compared to where I am, and I'm using the same camera. I'm using the exact same camera that I started with, but my work is getting better. I thought I needed a new camera, so I went back online. And by this time, newer cameras, even newer, the 5D Mark III, I think, was out, and just bigger, better cameras, faster shutter speeds or frames per second. You could shoot with in photo mode, 4K video, because the camera I had only shot 1080. So I didn't have 4K, I didn't have all of that stuff. And I remember I was just like, something isn't right, but I couldn't put my finger on it. But as time went on, I've learned that we live in a consumeristic, I don't know if that's a word, society. We are consumers of things, of products. And this isn't just in the camera world. This is in clothing. You know, you gotta have the latest clothes. This is in vehicles, cars. You know, you gotta have the latest car. You gotta have a Tesla. You know, it's in homes. You gotta have a $500,000 to $1 million home. And, you know, it has to have a certain square footage. You know, you have to own multiple homes. You know, you have to have real estate. Like there's levels now. Like, and people have built this standard of living. And it's like, if you don't meet this standard, then you're not really living. So it leads everybody else to where if you can't afford it, you are not really living life. And it can make you feel down and it can pull you down. And this is what was starting to happen to me. I was getting down because I felt like I can't be the best I can be because I don't have the proper gear to assist me and to help me get better. I actually believed at one point that I needed this professional gear to be good. That's what I really thought. But the reason I'm even doing this and talking about this is because I want you guys to understand something. Sony just released 3 new lenses for the APS-C body. So these are cameras like the ZV-E10, the A6600, the A6400, A65, and so on in the Sony world. And they are the 15mm 1.4, the 11mm 1.8, and the 10 to 20mm f4. Now, none of these lenses have stabilization on them, but the big thing with these lenses is that they're compact, they're smaller lenses. And this is the big selling point, is the fact that they're smaller lenses. Now, a lot of these focal ranges are pretty much covered by either Sigma, Tamron, or other companies, Rokinon. For instance, like the 15mm 1.4 Sony lens, there is a Sigma 16mm 1.4. Now, the Sigma is a bigger lens, but they're essentially the same. Now, the reason I'm saying all this is because of this. A lot of the bigger YouTubers are pushing these new lenses, and a lot of the titles are things like Sony APS-C is not dead, or Sony APS-C has been revived. There's new life being breathed into the APS-C line. And at first, I didn't understand what they were saying, but as I started looking at the videos and watching it, I got a better understanding of what they were saying. And some of them were just simply saying that they thought that Sony had abandoned the APS-C line because they hadn't made some of these lenses that were needed. So they felt that the line was dying, but by Sony releasing these lenses, now they're saying that they care about the APS-C line. And here's my take on it. This reminds me of the time when I was learning cameras again, and I had that same feeling like I needed to have a certain thing in order for me to feel validated. Now, I don't feel that way so much now, but I can understand how newer people may feel that way. You may be looking for a lens and all these YouTubers are telling you, you got to get these 3 lenses. These are the go-to lenses now. These are popular. If you don't have these lenses, then, you know, you're not in the race. Now, they're not saying that per se, but with influence, with the production and all the things that go into these videos, you can easily be pushed into believing that, because I was. And typically this is what a review will go like, or an announcement. The YouTuber will put up a title and a thumbnail that's catching. So it'll pull you in, first of all. You'll click it and they'll say, hey, today we're gonna talk about these 3 brand new lenses that Sony just released. And these lenses are like nothing you've ever seen before. They're a lot smaller and they're gonna blow your mind. Stick with us. And then they'll cut to some B-roll where they're skateboarding with their friends and going to grocery stores and laughing and just having all this fun. But it ends up them being like a 8-minute video. And out of that 8 minutes, 3 minutes of that is them actually talking about the lens, and the other 5 minutes is them pushing their podcast, their merch, or what they're planning on doing down the road. So the whole point of this video is to say this: if you really want to learn photography and videography, keep the reviews to a minimum and search for YouTubers. I'm not even saying me, there are other people out there. Search for YouTubers that when you listen to them, you actually grow. This is one way you can tell. When you're watching a video, cover your screen, flip your phone down, and just listen to the audio. See what you learn. If you can't learn anything from the audio, you may not be learning much. Now, that isn't to say that you always should be learning something, but the majority of the time you should be. Now, I understand that you need to see the quality of the lens and things like that. That's fine. But if most of the videos you're watching is mostly all visual, you're not learning. You need to learn some concepts about videography and photography. That's my opinion on this thing. So I want to know what you guys think about this. So in the comments below, tell me what you think. But until next time, I'll holler at y'all later. I'm out. Peace.